Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for our masterclass on extended detection and response. I'm just going to allow a few seconds for everybody to join, and then we'll make a start with the introductions. With this masterclass coming from all the way from the Caribbean, we're expecting quite a diverse audience this afternoon. When I say this afternoon, it may be morning or just coming up to lunchtime wherever you are. So please let us know in the Q&A or afterwards where you've come from, because it's all really very interesting for us, and it's great to see where all of our members are from as well. So moving on, I'm just going to quickly run you through our house rules. So for anybody who hasn't attended one of our webinars before, you are muted throughout the webinar, but please don't worry at all. There's plenty of opportunity for engagement and discussion throughout. If you'd like to type any questions you have for our panelists this afternoon through to us using the Q&A box, we'll be able to pick those up throughout. And our host, Edward Millington, will be fielding the questions today for the webinar. Hopefully you don't have any issues this afternoon, but if you do, please do let us know using the support email address on screen, which is support@CIISec.org, and another member of our team will be able to assist you and hopefully help with any issues that you may have. As I mentioned briefly before, this masterclass comes all the way from the Caribbean. Well, our host is from the Caribbean, but our speakers are actually from different areas, which we'll go on to explain in a little while. But this masterclass will be focusing on XDR, so extended detection and response. Our host for today's masterclass is Edward Millington, one of our CIISec members, and Edward is a veteran in this area. He has 21 years of experience in information security, working in various different industries as well, from various different service providers, so telecoms, banking, government, and not to mention Edward also has a huge wealth of affiliations as well. So before I hand over to Edward to get us started, I did just want to spend a few seconds or so just running through CIISec membership, as I'm quite aware that we may be attracting people who are non-members. So just to let you know a little bit of background on the Chartered Institute of Information Security, or better known as CIISec, we have over 15,000 people that we represent. And that ranges all the way from student from a student and affiliate level all the way to fellows. And we have various different accreditation processes to get you from that level all the way up to fellow. You may be wondering, what's the benefit of me joining CIISec? I'm not going to try and sell it to you too much, but here are a few of the benefits of being a CIISec member. The main thing that I did want to talk about more about this afternoon is free attendance to CIISec Live 2021, which is the Congress we're running later this year in September. So CIISec Live will be coming on the 15th and 16th of September, and it is actually free for CIISec members to attend. So if you aren't yet a CIISec member, all you have to do is sign up as a CIISec member and you can then attend the event for free. We'd love to see you there. There's going to be some amazing speakers that we're really excited about having. So Bruce Schneier, Phil Venables and Chris Kubaka are amongst our keynote speakers. If you're a corporate member listening, you also have various free tickets for non-CIISec members. And on screen there, you'll see the various different themes that we'll be focusing on throughout. We're really excited to be running the event and we hope to see you there. If you'd like to find out any more information about CIISec Live or any of our other events, please do head over to the CIISec website. But I know Edward has a little bit more to tell you about the skills framework and everything. So I'm going to hand over to Edward now to introduce you this afternoon and to our speakers as well. Over to you, Edward.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening to where you're located. So today's discussion, we'll be discussing XDR. And we'll touch upon the many domains within the CIISec skill framework. Level 3 to 5 of the cybersecurity maturity model certification framework. And of course, the many sys controls for which XDR can be implemented. So on that note, I would like to introduce to us here right now is going to be Jose Antonio Fernandez. He's currently at Palo Alto. He is a computer engineer and software development veteran. He has spent over 25 years in the enterprise software industry, with the past 20 years focusing on cybersecurity. Mr. Fernandez has internationally work experience, specifically in Latin America, Europe, Asia countries. Jose has implemented and deployed software applications in all verticals: banking, technology, service provider, web, health, etc., all over the world. Jose managed important partnerships in the region and has developed, architect, and designed enterprise solutions and contributed to the technical support and product development. I must also say that Fernandez is also passionate about XDR in terms of attractive threat hunting and also in the detection and prevention of threats that we see today. So on that note, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Jose Antonio Fernandez, where you can start this masterclass. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you very much for the presentation or the introduction. Thank you to the Charter Institute of Information Security for the invitation of participating in this event. Hopefully everybody's doing great. I'm based out of California, by the way. So I'm here in California. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. But hopefully, whatever you are, you're about to have lunch or dinner possibly. But in this particular moment, I'm here to talk a little bit about Cortex XDR, or the XDR technology. So let me share with you guys my presentation. Let me just make sure that everybody sees it. Can I get confirmation that everybody sees the presentation, please?
That's great. We can see that fine.
Yes, yeah.
Perfect. Right, so today we're going to be talking about XDR and exactly what we're trying to accomplish with this presentation. If you walk away from this session today, it's understanding what is the concept of XDR, right? So, but to start with, I need to talk a little bit about the challenges that we're facing today in not only in LATAM, right, in South America and the Caribbean, but also worldwide. And the truth of the matter is that we're losing the battle, right? A lot of organizations are getting attacked today. We suffer attacks. And part of the reason that we're getting attacked today is because we still have a very reactive solution rather than proactive solution. A lot of the times, and Palo Alto is in fault of this as well. A lot of the times we allow patient zero or the 0-day attack to come in, and once it comes in, then we understand, we kind of do an investigation on this particular attack. We look at it, we create a signature, and then from that point on, then we can detect it from that moment on. Having said that, we have done, because we realized that we've been doing a lot of reaction or reactive mode, and we've been in reactive mode rather than proactive mode. Palo Alto Network and our founder, Nir Suk, decided to change the whole idea now, and we're trying to now compete at the same speed of all these different attacks, so we can get in front of the attack rather than being in a very proactive mode. But having said that, and I'll touch a little bit on that concept, but for now, it is true that we're getting attacked almost every day, and the number one attack that we're seeing in the market today is still ransomware. In fact, since April 2020, right after the coronavirus came about, there were, and I don't know if you know this, but there were, they created about the malicious actors created about 1.2 million malicious website that has the information, or it has words related to the coronavirus. So it has the word like pandemic, like vaccination, like corona, like COVID-19, and so on and so forth. And they utilize these common words so that when people are trying to click on a hyperlink to understand what is the latest status on COVID and what's going on with the pandemic, then what ended up happening is that the user will click on that particular link, and it will get redirected to a malicious website, and that's allowing that website to download a payload into that endpoint, and generating some sort of a ransomware inside of that system. So that's very unfortunate. I was blown away by these statistics, but it's incredible what's happening out there. So the truth of the matter here is that attacks are happening at the speed of light, right? And they're utilizing variants to be able to propagate effectively into somebody's network. And in fact, if you happen to have a really good tool, as an example of this will be an XDR solution, but if you happen to have a very good tool, you should be able to detect at least 90% of those attacks without too much effort involved. and then you just allow the last 1% to be able to do some sort of a detailed analysis and utilize things like machine learning to help you through that process. And but the truth of the matter here is that a lot of the organizations that we deal with on a daily basis, they don't have the right tools deployed. And in fact, it's actually the opposite. They have about 30 to 35 different point products to be able to secure their infrastructure. That's making it a lot difficult to be able to have a perfect security posture, right? And in fact, what they ended up doing is that they allow a huge gap of vulnerability, a huge gap of security inside of the organization because they have to deal with all these different point products. And that's part of what I'm trying to say here in the next slide is, listen, the challenge is there. We definitely have a problem. The problem is that customers are getting attacked every day. And a lot of these customers, they're getting a lot of alerts out of all these different point products, right? So in fact, I was talking to an FBI agent a couple of weeks ago that he came and visited Palo Alto Networks. And in one of the presentations, I asked him, how long does it take kind of like usually an organization to find out whether or not they've been attacked or whether or not they can actually remediate the attack. And he told me that it was taking about 2 months to get to the bottom of the whole investigation. And part of the problem is exactly that issue where you have 30, 35 different point products, and all these different point products are also generating hundreds of alerts, right? So it's going to take a lot of time for somebody, if you have a SOC administrator, if you have security personnel inside of your organization, it's going to take some time for that person to drill down into each one of these alerts and understand whether there is correlation between them and whether there is a story behind that particular alert and so on and so forth, right? So it takes time to be able to get to the bottom of it, and not only to prevent, but to remediate, and also to prevent, detect, and remediate any type of attack. So that's really the challenge that we're seeing in today's environment. And every time I talk to a customer, they're definitely getting attacked. They definitely have 30, 35 different point products. And unfortunately, it takes them a lot of time to do the investigation and get to the bottom of things. So if you take a look at what the security operations look like today, it's truly a mess. It's a chaos, right? I mean, you have data all over the place. You have syslogs all over the place that you need to look at. You have the CIEMs, you have the user behavior analytic component, you have the network analytic component. Each one of these solutions are popping out different types of logs and information. You have to look into all this data. And then, by the way, each one of these data resides in and different departments within an organization. So it takes some time to kind of like drill down and get to the bottom of things. And in fact, there was a report that Forrester provided in 2021, where it says that most organizations today, on average, they're getting about 11,000 alerts a day. That's incredible. I mean, think about this person that is showing up to work, and the whole job of that particular person is just drilling down into each one of these alerts to understand what's really happening in their environment. I mean, it takes a huge amount of effort and time and energy to get to solve a situation that they may have, right? Not only that, but it says that 83% of most organizations, they still have 24/7 support. It is required for them to have 24/7 support. So what that means to that organization is not only they need to invest a lot of time into understanding what's happening from the cybersecurity perspective and understanding if their security posture is appropriate, but also it takes a lot of money to be able to run an operation like this, right? And more when you're talking about an international organization such as Palo Alto Networks, where we have multiple data centers all over the place. So that's very important. And I think this report hits the nail on the head when it comes down to all the challenges that we're seeing on organizations that have SOCs or have security personnel to work in those organizations.
So Jose, May I just add that this whole process becomes very manual and can take extreme times. You know, it increases your dwell time tremendously when you have to go through all those types of alert and try to correlate them on your own and so forth. And it delays the ability to be able to detect an attack or even a breach in this particular case.
Absolutely, absolutely right. And I have seen it in action. I've seen it in firsthand, because we get a lot of customers calling us saying, "I just been breached right now." In fact, 3 weeks ago, I had a customer out of Costa Rica that says, "I've been breached. Where do I go from now?" Right? Like, what do I do? And in fact, this particular is not really a customer. It was a prospect that we were trying to sell some Palo Alto solutions. And they came to us because their current vendor couldn't actually be able to do the investigation for them or do the incident response. So, and it was taking them already a week. By the time they got in touch with me, a week went by and they still didn't know anything about the attack. They still didn't know how deep the attack was inside of that network. They didn't know how the attack propagated throughout the network. So it is a real story, and people don't really realize this, but the moment that an attack propagates throughout the entire network, and the moment that it started exfiltrating data, you're it. I mean, that's it, right? You have CISOs and CIOs that have their job at risk because they could get fired right away. You have, you know, per record that they lose. Sometimes you can pay up to $500 per record. So it can get a very expensive, you know, operations, or a very expensive challenge to deal with if you don't have the right set of tools and kind of like a security platform that allows you to understand exactly what's really happening inside of the network, and how you can pinpoint accurately who the patient zero was, how that information got propagated, where is it right now, you know, which system has the actual ransomware. So it is very important to have the right set of solution, and that kind of goes back to this particular slide. If you see today's current environment and what companies are doing today, typically, and these are organizations that have SOCs, for instance, they have the infrastructure divided into 3 different tiers within that organization. And each one of these tiers, they're focused into, you know, let's say I wanted to concentrate my focus into hundreds of alerts, and then you go into tier 2. And as you advance down, right, if you move forward into, okay, now I need to concentrate. I realize that within those hundreds of alerts, there is not much going on, but out of those hundreds, there's 10th of alerts that now I need to pay attention to. And that could take anywhere between 2 hours to 2 weeks to get to the bottom of things. And finally, you get the tier 3 within that organization that takes literally, you know, you're looking at 1 or 2 different alerts at this point, and it can take up to 2 hours. So if you think about, you know, you have anywhere between 2 hours to 2 weeks by the time you get from thousands of alerts, right, all the way to a single alert or a couple of alerts in that particular scenario. And then obviously throughout this whole process, they utilize multiple tools, multiple point products to understand whether or not there's a story behind, right? Whether or not there's a correlation of information behind that you can actually, that it's easy to track and easy to trace throughout the entire process. So what happens? You got a guy here, I love this particular slide. You got a guy here that is going crazy, right? You have information from the antivirus solution, you have information for network traffic analytics, you have information from the user behavior analytics, you have information from a CM, you have information from an EDR. Where do you start, right? Like which system do you want to look at first and be able to understand, you know, and if each system is going to generate hundreds of alerts, where do you go from here, right? It's hard to pinpoint the situation, and it's hard to understand exactly who that patient zero is if none of these systems are integrated, right? And if none of these systems are integrated, you're not going to be able to understand how that traffic is getting, or that attack is getting propagated.
What we must also add to, Jose, there are many companies that do not have that same setup, where the ability to identify is even lacking. You might have a AV, maybe an NTA, and basically that's it. So the ability to drill down is going to be very difficult in today's existing implementation of your security operation or security investigation.
That's right. And if you only have a single point product in smaller organizations, sometimes that data is not rich enough to really get to the bottom of things and understand who really that patient zero is, or what type of attack it's going throughout your entire network. So unfortunately, you're going to have to put a whole bunch of data together. The richer the data, the better the analysis is, and the better something like machine learning can work out of to make the right analysis and be able to give you the right set of outcomes. So, but you're absolutely right, Edward. I mean, a lot of these organizations, smaller organizations, they only have one person. That person is responsible for the network, for the endpoints, for user behavior analytics, for pretty much everything that happens within that infrastructure. On top of it, that person has to be reading the CM hundreds of times a day just to understand what's happening inside of inside of their network. So at the end of the day, the goal here, understanding all these challenges and everything that a lot of companies are going through, at the end of the day, where you want to be at is you want to make sure that you're very proactive. You're not reactive. You want to be ahead of the attack. You want to be at the same speed of that attack. In fact, malicious actors, they use today machine learning to attack certain environments. And what that is that attack is going at the speed of light, pretty much. It's happening so quickly that it takes some time to find out what's really happening inside of the network. But if you happen to have a solution that could also utilize machine learning, right, and it does all the analysis for you, then you're pretty much at the same level as the attack is happening inside of your environment. And at the same time, not only you're doing the analysis in real time, but you're also being proactive. You're not waiting and sitting down to see, oh, okay, I got an attack, then let me build a signature, or let me build some sort of a analysis once the attack is in, so that I can detect it the following day or the following time when it happens. So the idea here is you wanted to have a solution that is proactive enough, that is going to allow you to do the prevention, the detection, and the remediation as quickly as possible. That's allowing you to obviously increase your efficiency inside of that environment. And at the same time, you're going to improve your security posture. And a lot of the people, I'm not quite sure how many people are connected in this webinar today, but the question should not be, are you secure? Because everybody's going to come back and say, hey, Jose, you know what? Yes, I'm secure. I got, 25 different point products that their whole goal is to detect all these different malicious attacks. But the question is not, that's not the right question. The question should be, how is your security posture? How quickly, once an attack happens inside of your environment, how quickly is your time to remediation and your time to detect that attack? And the quicker you get to the bottom of things, the better you're off, because then you don't have to worry about you're detecting and preventing that attack in time before actually data gets exfiltrated or sensitive information goes somewhere else, or et cetera, or your entire environment gets, encrypted if it is in the case of a ransomware, right? So that is where the security posture plays a very important role. So the question shouldn't be, are you secure? Yeah, everybody's going to say, yeah, I'm secure. No, how is your security posture? And that's what I want you to answer internally and think about that. And that's exactly where we want to be, right? Because the sooner we get to the bottom of things, the sooner we understand what that attack is doing inside of the network, the more efficient your environment is going to become, and the best security posture you're going to have at that point. So, okay. Yes.
Let us say a little bit differently. At some point in time, a business will be compromised. The idea is how far would that person reach within your network? What are some of the tools that you're going to use to detect those subtle movements as you have those lateral movements? In other words, privilege, elevation, implementation of some operations, some scripts, fault changes, where default integrity change. There is a question that someone asks, and I want you to bear this in mind. They ask, what is the difference between XDR and SIM? and can SIEM not, in essence, it seems like can SIEM not do the same thing as XDR? So we're going to answer that question later on, but just want to interject there.
No, I appreciate it. We'll definitely go over that question. And I think once I explain what a XDR solution is, it's going to click in your mind right away. So and you're going to be able to see clearly the difference between the two. So what is the new operating model? Where should we, if you're one of the organizations that have a SOC, right, and you really wanted to improve your security posture and get faster in terms of remediation and detection of these attacks, where you want it to be is that you wanted to automate. This is where the automation concept comes into play. You want something to automate pretty much once you get thousands of alerts or hundreds of alerts, you want a system to look into these alerts automatically and do all the filtering and all the drilling and all the investigation into those alerts to see what's valid, what is a false positive, what is really something that you really need to pay attention to. And that's where a lot of the systems today and a lot of the solutions that we offer as part of XDR is this automation tool, right? That allows you to, via playbooks, allows you to understand, oh, I'm seeing this alert before, so I know how to behave, I know how to react to it, so I know that it's a false positive, or yes, I've seen this before, and I think this is a dangerous alert, so I really need to pay attention. And once you drill down to the bottom of things, then as a SOC analyst or somebody who works in the security operations of that organization, all you have left on a daily basis, you're going from thousands of alerts all the way to just 10th of alerts, right? You have only, 5, 6, 7 different alerts that you're going to investigate, because those are the ones that you really need to drill down. Those are the ones that you may need to do some threat hunting as part of the capabilities that you have or skill set that you have to investigate. And those are the ones that you need to really understand and adapt so that you can remediate in real time. So at the end of the day, the goal here is that the SOC operator only spends a third of his day just doing threat hunting if possible, that understanding the alerts itself, and see if the remediation has to happen either automatically or manually. But the rest of the time, everything is done for you. So you don't really need to spend all this time drilling down and doing all this investigation like crazy, looking at different logs from different tools and all those different things that we spoke about. So what's XDR? So now that we understand the challenges, we understand what the problems are. So let's talk about what is the value proposition of a tool such as XDR. And by the way, Gartner recognizes now XDR as being a solution in the market, something that is actually under endpoint security. And here's what Gartner said. They said in 2020, in response to the security skill gaps and attacker trends, XDR tools, machine learning, and automation capabilities are emerging to improve security, productivity, and detection accuracy. So that happens in February of 27th, 2020. So when we talk about XDR then, and by the way, not because I work at Palo Alto Networks, but Palo Alto was the first company that took this concept of XDR out there in the market today. Up to this point, there was always a conversation about EDR, right? It's all about EDR, and either you had a next generation antivirus solution in your organization, or you had an EDR solution. But XDR it was created, this whole concept was created by Palo Alto Networks. And what XDR is about is really correlation of network information or network traffic data, correlating it with endpoint data and cloud data, as well as third-party data, such as alliances that you may have in your organization. For instance, Palo Alto Networks has an alliance with Cisco and Symantec and other organizations, so that we have kind of like an intelligence going across the cloud to understand exactly the latest and greatest type of attacks that we're all seeing in the market today. But in this particular case, XDR is the only technology out there that really puts together, stitches all this data together, the network data with the endpoint data, with the cloud data, and it stitches all together, it correlates all that information, it builds a story around it so that you clearly understand what it really is exactly happening inside of your network. And not only that, it will prevent and it will detect, it will tell you exactly who patient zero is, and it will tell you out of 1,000 alerts that you're getting, thanks to the machine learning into the system or into this solution, it will tell you, you know what, Jose, out of the 1,000 alerts that you're getting today, I want you to pay attention only to 2 events. And these 2 events, and it tells you exactly where those events are coming from, if part of the data that it collected was from, for instance, from a firewall, if part of the data was collected from the endpoint, et cetera, but it will tell you exactly, you know, who was the endpoint that got infected or who was that patient zero, how this whole attack came about, whether he just clicked on a browser and then from the browser he downloaded a file, and then once that file got downloaded, it executed some sort of a shell command inside of the network and so on and so forth. So that is the value of XDR, because now you can put together a story not only from the network perspective, but the endpoint. You understand exactly what the endpoint is doing, what the network is doing. If you have workloads going into the cloud, you wanted to understand if there's anything associated with the cloud as well, and you want to bring it all in and incorporate it into this story that you're building and putting together. So that's really what XDR means. The X of XDR came from an X amount of data sources. So in essence, what we do is we grab network data, we grab endpoint data, we grab cloud data, and then we store all that information into a centralized repository in the cloud. And then we have machine learning doing all the analysis for us and doing all the correlation and all the stitching of this information so that we can get the right set of outcomes out of this analysis. And that, my friends, is something that a CIEM cannot do today. So a CIEM will actually get information from the network, and it will give you a list of alerts and things that it's getting sent out to that particular CIEM for analysis, but it's not able to pull data out from different data sources and be able to correlate all that information and stitch all that data together and give you the outcome that you need.
Jose,
so
let me add,
yes,
add a little piece here. Looking at the CIISec skill set framework, this is an area strictly under incident management and investigation, and obviously part of digital forensics. So, you know, quite a bit of skill sets are coming in here. But the main thing here is the ability to be able, as you say, to stitch. When you have an incident, a breach already has occurred. You know, you can't do anything about that. It already has occurred. What do I need to know to prevent it? Well, first, what do I need to know? How far it has reached? What's my current attack surfaces? Are there still remnants in the network if you decide to isolate a device? And then number 3 is how can I improve my infrastructure based on this information? So, you know, on this same skill framework, we have the ability to do with operational security management itself, where you're doing security ops to make sure that you strengthen your infrastructure as much as possible from the information given to you as you investigate the threat, which we were looking at a remediation state. So you can proceed.
So that's a good question, Edward. And from the skill set perspective, actually, one of the advantages of having a solution like XDR is the fact that either it works for somebody who has a SOC, right? And you have multiple people doing all these different analysis and so on and so forth, or it works for that company that only has one single guy that wears multiple hats trying to identify everything, right? And the reason for that is because this solution kind of gives you the full visibility, the full story of what's happening inside of your network, and it does all the work for you. You know, it does all the automation process for you, all the decision making process for you, and at the end, it's going to tell you, listen, Edward, all you need to do, I understand you're only one person in that company, and that person, you're responsible for everything. So here, I'm putting it in your lap. Here's all you need to care about. Just look at this alert and that's it. And the cool thing about it is that the tool itself also gives you the capability of understanding via a diagram exactly where that attack is at that moment in time. It tells you exactly, hey, the attack is at this particular endpoint. And then you can either do two things. You can go and connect directly to that endpoint via the same solution. You don't even have to do anything else. You can just connect to that endpoint and say, oops, okay, I'm going to delete some files, or I'm going to remove this, or I'm going to execute some sort of a script, et cetera, to be able to clean things up. Or you can say, hey, you know what? I want my automation tool that in this particular case, it's or XOR that you see here. Let me just put my, let me change this so I can annotate. I don't know if I have annotation capabilities today. Let me see. I don't seem to have them. But can you guys see if I move when I move my mouse? Can you see that? Can you see my arrow?
Yeah, yes, you can see the mouse moving.
So one of the things that you can do is, if you're a single guy just looking at all this information, remember the solution is going to give you everything in front of you. It's going to tell you exactly where you need to look at. And all you need to do is make a decision. Do I want it to manually remediate this, or do I want it to a solution like an X or an automation tool to take over and then just do it all by itself? And so that's where the automation process also come into play, because you can make a decision. And so your job into this investigation process can be as skillful as you need it. So you may, if you're a person that really cares about, threat hunting and doing, looking inside all the way to the weeds of what's really happening inside of the systems and what happens with the attack and what kind of files got modified and all these different things, you can certainly do that. But if you're another person that doesn't really have that level of skills, but all you care about is topping the issue immediately, remediating the issue immediately, you can also do it with this particular solution. So that's the nice thing about a solution like XDR. It doesn't really matter your skill set. You can go as deep as you want it, or you can actually step out and say, look, I just need this to block this issue right now, so I can have lunch after this. And the solution can actually do that for you. And in fact, here's a diagram that shows you, in details what this XDR looked like from the inside, right? So you can see that, whether we collect information from the endpoint, the network, the cloud, and then we store all that information to what we call the data lake. The data lake is a cloud repository or central repository where we collect all that data information. Then obviously we do all the machine learning, the stitching, correlation of that information that I was telling you about, and then we go ahead and mitigate. Now, you can also not only do, as I said, based on your skill level, if you feel lucky enough and you wanted to do a lot of threat hunting, by all means, you can do that. Or you can also leverage, by the way, that we haven't talked about, the capabilities of certain partners in the region, MDR partners, to work things out for you. So you can, if you don't have the skill sets, or you feel like, holy crap, this is a lot for me to deal with, you can certainly hire, or you can, in your relationship, if you have any relationship with partners in the regions that are MDR partners, then the MDR partner can act in your behalf and then do all this analysis for you and all this remediation and detection and so on and so forth, right? And then you also have, obviously, with the XDR, but this is not everybody has a different XDR solution, but this is Palo Alto Networks. We also have the capability of creating a report as part of this architecture and telling you what are the assets that you have today that are exposed to the internet. Because the moment that you understand this, the moment you're going to understand if you have actually opened up the gates, per se, for attackers to come in and do an attack. So we can give you a list of inventory of saying, hey, all these assets, by the way, are exposed to the internet, and they're going to be easy for a malicious actor to hit them and be able to attack him. But also we provide to our customers' incident response. So if they do get attacked, right, they don't need to call somebody else. They don't need to call another organization. They don't need to call another partner. They can just call Palo Alto Networks and say, look, I've been attacked. Help me out, right? And we respond to that attack immediately. We have people that actually look into that information within minutes, and then we start working to to secure that particular customer. So, but the idea here is to utilize that same XDR solution. As you can see here, we're not talking about any other solution. We're not talking about any other point product. We're not talking about anything else. It's the same platform, security platform that we use to protect our customers today.
Jose, I have a question here where a person asks, what's the difference between EDR and XDR? And they mentioned some products here, Carbon Black and FireEye and so forth. I don't know if you want me to answer that there, but again, XDR, as we highlighted, correlates all your network sensors and perform AI, machine learning, and other techniques, not only to defend your infrastructure, but to give you the ability in an incident management process to identify where how the breach occur, where it has happened, where it is going, and how I can stop it or prevent it in the future. EDR is only going to be able to take that intelligence plane cloud and mitigate the issue, and not our EDR solutions are the same, and not our XDR solutions are the same. Next question was asking, can it work in a VDA environment on mobile devices? Yes.
Yes, it does. And by the way, just to make it clear, because it seems like this question is coming about, and I don't know if I'm making a good job in explaining it, but just to make it clear. So the difference between EDR and XDR is that EDR, it's an endpoint security solution that allows you to detect and remediate, right? But it's all about the data inside of that endpoint. XDR is more than that. XDR gives you the network traffic, it gives you the cloud, it correlates all that data, it stitches that data together, and it gets you the story that you need to be able to have full visibility of what's happening, not only here, but it's telling you not only my endpoint, but it's telling me what else is going on in my network, right? So it's giving you a full visibility of what's happening. The other component that is important to understand here is that XDR, it not only has an EDR component because it does detection and remediation, but it has an endpoint protection, it has user behavior analytics, it has network detection and response. So it's all these different point products. If you think about, if you're an organization that cares about user behavior analytics, guess what? You need to go ahead and buy a user behavior point product, right? If you want endpoint protection or network security protection, guess what? You need to go and buy a solution that monitors the network and understand exactly whether it does it via net flows or it does it via any other kind of protocols, syslogs, et cetera, et cetera. You need to buy that to be able to understand what's happening inside of the network and have that full visibility. With Cortex XDR, we're putting all this stuff together and we're telling you exactly, we're doing user behavior analytics for you. We're doing EDR for you. We're doing network detection and remediation from the security perspective of that network. So we're putting all that stuff together into one component, one platform to be able to respond immediately and increase your security posture. In fact, if you remember, actually, let me go back to my first screen here before I jump into anything else. Do you remember this famous attack that happened? This one here, SolarWinds, right? It happened not too long ago, a few weeks ago, probably 3 months ago by now. So we are, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, but as far as I know, we're the only vendor, security vendor out there that was able to detect a SolarWinds attack immediately the moment that it came out. And guess why we were able to detect it? We were able to detect it not because of the endpoint data. Remember, it didn't have anything to do with endpoint. It was all about user behavior. And it was all about the behavioral analytic component of Cortex XDR that allow us to detect from the get-go what happened to this with this attack, and we were able to block it immediately. So as you can see, there's a lot of differences between an EDR component and an XDR component. And in fact, here's some examples, right? So when we're talking about, pulling together all this data and stitching all this information, again, we look into the network, we look into threat intels, we look into user and host information, we look into the application, we look into the endpoint, and these are some of the information some of the attributes that we pull together when we combine and stitch all that data together. We look from anywhere from TCP port, source IP address, countries, destination, send bytes, receive bytes. We understand who are the top talkers in the network. And then we look into threat intelligence to understanding what kind of malware this is, what kind of phishing URL this is, et cetera, et cetera. User information is the user. Where does he belong to? What kind of organization within the company he belongs to? What is the organizational unit, operating system that it's using? All that different information. What is the application that this user is utilizing at the time of the attack? How it came about, what triggered the attack? Was it an email? Was it going out to the browser and navigating into the internet? And then what happens to the endpoint? The registry inside of the endpoint got changed, got modified. What kind of attack? What kind of file was attacked? Was it a child file that executed the attack itself? Was it a CLI command that actually got generated and executed? So all this information, right? It's putting all this story together, and that's what the power of XDR it's about. If you're talking about an EDR solution, all you get out of that EDR solution is pretty much what you see here on the right quadrant of this particular slide, right?
I think, Jose, as a little bit to more what you're saying, I think the reason why XDR or EDR transform into XDR as the world knows it is the ability to detect lateral movement. Those subtle stuff, like if you're a breach, you don't know unless something pops up at you. But if an actor wants to stay in the network and gather information, able to slowly traverse through the network, there has to be a way to detect that. So just looking at an endpoint is, again, puts you in a bunker. But being able to look within your city and determine how traffic move and people move and any sort of anomalies can highlight when you have that threat actor in your network who is lying low but slowly sniffing data. So this could be either be government or a big corporation or a small business that is turning over a very large profit, based on customer information, credit cards, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and you're hit the nail on the head as well, Edward. So, if you wanted to understand lateral movement within your network, again, it goes back to what I was saying before. You now have full visibility, not of the endpoint, because the endpoint itself is not going to tell you. It's going to tell you, hey, the attack is in your endpoint. But what happened after that? Where did the attack go? It stayed in your endpoint, or it kind of actually propagated and went somewhere else. And that picture, the power of understanding where that attack is going, that full visibility that I was talking about, that's really powerful. And that's where the value of a solution like XDR can provide. So at the end, right, what is the goal? And I'm about to finish the presentation here. At the end, it's really to prevent everything that you can from the beginning, so you don't have to worry about doing a lot of investigations and understanding that lateral movement and understanding what the data is going. But if you do have sophisticated attacks, enough of, they're very sophisticated to the fact that they're actually able to penetrate your network, then you want that solution to allow you to do that investigation all the way to the weeds, right? Understanding every little component, understanding how that attack is moving around, understanding if the registries are getting modified, understanding if it was a child file that got executed that actually generated the attack, and so on and so forth. So you have to have a solution that, once again, it gives you all that visibility. And the only way to get that visibility is by having that rich set of data. And the only way to get that rich set of data is to collect data from all different angles, right? From not only the network, but also the endpoint, as well as the cloud. And then finally, the overall goal here is that, hey, if you're a person that only works, you're responsible for everything, and you don't have a SOC, wouldn't it be nice to just sit down and have an automation tool that does all the work for you, so you don't have to worry about it? I mean, that's incredible. That brings immediate value to the organization. Or if you're a SOC and you do have people working in the SOC doing all this analysis, at the same time, you want to utilize that automation tool to be able to, to get rid of all those hundreds and thousands of alerts, so you don't really even need to pay attention to, you don't even care. And that way, your time to remediation, your time to detection, remember that graph, the time to remediation and detection goes very low, but yet your effectiveness and your security posture increases at the same time, and you become a very efficient operation. In fact, we walk the walk and we talk the talk. And here at Palo Alto Networks, this is our statistics today. We have more than 10,000 employees. We have more than 50,000 endpoints today. We have 13 data centers all over the world. We have more than 82,000 customers, and we use our solutions. We use our security platforms. Here's the network security. Here's Cortex, the endpoint security, the cloud security. We use Cortex XDR or XDR component to be able to do all this correlation and stitching of all this information. And we use XOR, which is our automation tool, to do all that analysis for us automatically and do all the remediation for us automatically. So in fact, what has been the SOC impact within, and we have our own SOC at Palo Alto Network, where the SOC analyst only spends a third of the time just doing alerts and response, a third of the time doing hunting, and a third of the time improving the type of alerts and tuning and configuring a few things. But that's it, guys. Yes.
I have a very critical question here that everyone has been asking now for many months. The question is, SolarWinds attacks late undetected for several months. Are you saying that Palo Alto detected it earlier and did not report it? Or did you detect it and rely on initial IOCs being published?
One more time, sorry.
The SolarWinds attack late undetected for several months. So they're asking, did you detect it and did not report it, or you had to rely on the indicators of compromise being published?
So if an organization has actually had an attack that has been there for several months, is that what you're saying?
No, they're saying, they're asking the question, did Palo Alto detect this earlier in the SolarWinds attack? And
for the SolarWinds. Ah, I see. Yeah. So no, it wasn't based on, actually, we could do a detection based on IOCs or BIOCs, but we have also a module within our Cortex XDR that looks at behavior. And we were able to see that the behavior, suspicious behavior happened on how the files were moving and getting stored into different systems. And that particular behavior was the one that triggered XDR to stop and block the attack immediately. So, but we can, just to answer the question, you could also base the analysis on IOCs. You can base your analysis or your investigation or block an attack on BIOCs as well, which are behavior indicators of compromise. And you can add your own IOCs and BIOCs that we can look at as well as part of the analysis. So, but that's a good question.
They're asking if you say that Palo Alto did detect it first, why was it not reported? Or you had to rely on IOCs that were published to detect it? So in other words, they want to know if you were the first, why was it not reported? Or after the IOCs were published, you were then able to detect it?
So we reported it when the attack happened. Obviously, we reported it to all of our customers, and we told them. In fact, my team, I'm the director of SCs for LATAM, and Rolando is part of my team. And my team got immediately on the horn and started reporting. We did a massive reporting by sending multiple emails, but also each one of the SCs actually called customers, and we provided a step-by-step process of what to look for. inside of their network, because a lot of our customers also don't have an XDR solution. So we wanted to make sure that a lot of our customers were safe and sound. And we actually took about 2 days. By the time we understood that the attack was in and we blocked it, it took us 2 days, 48 hours to report to everybody that we knew, all 80,000 customers that we have, 82,000 customers that we have. And the SC community had a lot to do with that communication as well. All right, so, and going back to what I was talking about on the SOC, having that automation process, it's a huge improvement. Now you're able to cut not only time, in fact, Palo Alto's SOC, it's only Monday through Friday. There's only 5 people attending the SOC. That's it. And they don't even have to do 24 hours, 24/7. Why? Because they rely 100% on the automation tools, and that's saving them 1,400 hours of effort and energy and resources. So in fact, the automation process is saving a lot of money for the SOC at Palo Alto Networks. So that, again, being proactive, right, rather than reactive. Being proactive is what's going to take you far. So what is the Cortex XDR value? Once again, you can detect, all this information, response time up to 88%, reduce alert by 98%, and then the other 2%, you just do the investigation yourself, because those are the events that you really need to pay attention to. And then at the end of the day, you're saving money in true cost of operations by 44%, because you don't have to hire thousands of people or hundreds of people or 50 people to run your SOC. In the case of Palo Alto Networks, and you saw the statistic, we have 82,000 customers. We have 13 data centers all around. We have more than 50,000 endpoints, and only with 5 people working Monday through Friday, we're able to protect our organization 24/7. So you're saving money at the end. And that's really what I have for you today. Hopefully this was very productive, and hopefully you were able to really grasp the concept of what XDR is about.
So I can say that looking at the solution itself, especially when you're looking at risk posture, doing that assessment where you need to apply the necessary security controls, as I mentioned early in my opening statement, many of the controls that will be deployed within an XDR solution, a true XDR solution, really exists. For those of you who are familiar with the cybersecurity maturity model certification framework, they exist between 3 and 5. Just on average, a very small company and some businesses will operate between level 1 and level 2. But to be able to operate in some of the 3 to 5 domains is tremendously improving that posture. So I think that in its particular self, the cybersecurity risk posture improves tremendously. And especially when you look at the maturity of the security operations and the incident management, it helps. It helps when you can take that feedback and add the necessary layers, mature your security controls even a little bit more, or even much more, in terms of defending your infrastructure. It reduces the ability to gather that information by bringing in experts once you have that intelligence. And in terms of a skill set, it broadens your skill set for that cybersecurity professional to operate in multiple domains in the investigation of a particular incident.
And just to let you know, threat hunting is not something easy that everybody can grasp and really everybody understands. So as Edward indicated, if that's the direction that you want to go, and is that the skill level set that you want to have, by all means, you can utilize some of these tools, or XDR tool, in this particular case, Cortex XDR, to be able to allow you to do a lot of the threat hunting capabilities, and then you can get your hands dirty into that process and get more familiar with what it is and how you can get the outcome that you need as part of that process. But it takes time, right? It takes practice, because sometimes you don't even know where to start, right? You don't even know what to look for. What word am I looking for? What file am I looking for? And the nice thing about something like XDR is that it gives you all that information in front of you, because the data is very rich, and it's easier for you to obtain whatever you need or the attribute that you need to look for, and go for it. So so it's a tool that allows you to definitely improve your skill sets if you so desire to do so.
Okay. All right, Jose, thanks very much. We have reached that time limit. I think it was very informative. A lot of questions have been asked. This is just part 1 of part 2 of the series. In that part, we really want to look at is how you can use this data and why we keep on talking about security operations and improving your infrastructure from this data. So again, thank you very much. And I'd like to thank CIISec for giving me this opportunity to host this within the Caribbean. And I hope that in our next session, we can have a lot more questions and expansion of persons joining us to learn how we can handle this cyber crisis that is going on right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I appreciate it. Hopefully this was productive and you had a really good understanding now of what XDR is all about. Thank you again for the team for inviting me to this session. Hopefully we're getting great feedback and look forward to our next session. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much from CIISec as well. Thanks, Edward. Thanks, Jose. It's a brilliant session. Just to let the audience know as well, when you click off this webinar, there'll be a quick satisfaction survey pop up. If you could just take 2 minutes to complete that and just let us know what you thought, that would be really helpful, especially with the next one that we're running. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Same to you. Same to everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.